بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجه الكريم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. We welcome you all to another session of the Black Imams Roundtable. To my side is my colleague and my brother and my fellow Imam, Faheem Lee, missing tonight, but not at the heart level, our beloved Imam Naeem Abdullah, and I am Amin Muhammad, your lowly servant, and we are the Black Imams that make up the Black Imams Roundtable. We welcome you all to this gathering of beneficial reminders and productive, stimulating thoughts, as the Black Imams Roundtable always is. And inshallah, we hope tonight would be another night of beneficial knowledge, thought-provoking dialogue, and empowering discussions. So before we get started, as we remind you every week, is let's attain our objective, which is our weekly commitment to support this platform, that all of us do it. So inshallah, if we do it early, we reach our goal, then we don't have to talk about it later, and we could spend our time discussing more beneficial things than discussing things that we already know and we should be by now on autopilot with. So let us do three things. Let us, number one, let us press the like button. Number two, let us share. And number three, let us do our portion in supporting this platform. And all of us already know the objective, so let's get it done, inshallah tabaraka wa ta'ala. In my opening statements, I want to just update you on a successful weekend of knowledge and study of the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam at Masjid Muhammad in Atlantic City with our 3453 family. As you know, we had the weekend intensive all day Saturday and all day Sunday, in which we did the narration and the explanation of Al-Arba'in al-Nawawiyya, of the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. And it was a very, very, very successful gathering in many ways, but I will mention a few. Number one, it is always a blessing and a joy for us to come together face to face, for us to come together as we do online, but to actually physically engage and interact with one another. It is just really something that you have to be there to feel it, because we see each other in our names online, and then you always at every gathering put a face to the name, a spirit to the name, and an engagement and a conversation. And that, for me, that's the best part of the gathering. Like, we say family, and then when we get together and you actually feel that from one another, you know, you feel like we are a family. But that is only really possible to see when we're actually physically together. How we treat each other and how we deal with one another, how we interact with one another, and laughing and having fun and learning and eating and drinking and brotherhood and sisterhood and taking pictures and doing everything that we do, when we're together. To me, that is like, it's very, very, very inspiring, and it gives me motivation to keep going. So that's one, and let me thank everyone who attended the event. Those who wish they could have attended and had good thoughts about attending, and those who made dua for us who did attend. Let me thank you. As you can see, that was a side picture of the gathering, and it was filled. We had around 100 people who attended this study session. And it went very well, mashallah, very, very well. So I want to thank all of you. As the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does not thank the people has not thanked Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So we thank you all, mashallah. And it's the beginning of, inshallah, many more sessions to come. That was one thing. The second thing was the historic context of the event by having our beloved Sheikh Ibrahim Abdul Aziz do the reading of the 40 hadith, as he is one of our elders. That's nice, Stacy. I like that. Right? We've been talking about this, myself and Sheikh Ibrahim, for years, and we finally did it. And now that we did it, he got to see that, yes, this is possible for our communities to read these books of hadith and eventually books of tafsir. And really, really, we have a high intention for future events. And as I told the people that attended, Sheikh Ibrahim, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, is like one of the senior elders in our community. That's a hidden jewel that many don't know about. They know about his students, and his students have become famous, but a lot of them owe their success to their good beginning with him. And he's a very humble man. He doesn't, make a lot of claims, but subhanAllah, he's special. And for us to have him read those hadith and be counted in our chains of narration, connected to the chains of narration to the scholars back to Imam an-Nawawi, is a stage that we've been longing to see, because we're talking about succeeding generations passing the baton to next generations. And it is a beautiful thing. I have something that I'm working on for the next one. I don't know how, I want to top that, but I have it in my mind, and I'm gonna work on it, inshallah, over the next month or so. Then the other thing was that the ijazas and the sharing of the chains of narration, that we did it in such a way that we went past what we did in Pittsburgh, because we did a Yemeni route connected to the 40 hadith. We did an Egyptian Azhari route to the 40 hadith. We did our route through Syria, Shami route for the 40 hadith, and we did a route through Africa. through Nigeria to the 40 Hadith. So those that were there were connected to the 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi from many routes. And that was a first for most of us. And it is something that I would hope that we really honor and preserve. And there was one case where there was Sister Callie Khadijah's grandson, young kid. I don't know. He probably was 7, 8, 9, somewhere around there, or younger. He came to up front. He said, I need to get my ijazah too. I said, he heard he was there. He sent me, give him two. And he was so proud. He took it and he went back. I said, make sure you preserve that for him. One day, he's going to get old enough and he's going to be connected. And he will be, inshallah, of those among our people who will preserve this tradition. Because he has it. And he can, and if we do a good job, he will remember his asanid. And when he gets time to narrate, he'll relate with that chain of narration. And that's a start. And that's the good thing of having our children in these sessions. And that really was inspiring. So we had the senior generation, 65 and above. Then we had a generation of them in the 50s. We had some in the 40s, some in the 30s, some in the 20s, and teens. And then some below teens, all in those sessions. So it's spread across multiple segments of our community, male and female. And inshallah ta'ala, that is something we should be proud of, right? Because we do have some stuff, as you can see, and we're benefiting from it. The other thing that really made me happy is the sacrifice that entire families made who came as a family all the way from Florida, North Carolina, and I'll get myself Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, Northern New Jersey, New York, all of them conversion. And if I miss your state, don't get on my case. I'm old and tired, right? But, from all over, to see that the work we're doing online, on the ground, that people converge, because it's a sacrifice. You got to spend money, you got to travel, hotels, and people came from all over. And to feel like, mashallah, we're a family. And we're doing something great. So, that to me it meant a lot. And I want all of you to know that I greatly appreciate your participation. And I greatly appreciate your studying, your writing notes, and right. And may Allah preserve you, may Allah protect you, may Allah make you winners. So we're going to talk about this, inshallah, which is our topic, because I want to lay out a picture for you so you can have some aspirations, high aspirations for other things we need to do. And that's why we're talking about reviving the Sunni tradition in our community. So inshallah, that was my opening statements. And inshallah ta'ala, I'll go into more of the topic after Imam Faheem does his opening.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsani ila yawm ad-din wa ba'd. Again, alhamdulillah, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. And so our first order of business, just to follow up with Imam Amin. Make sure that you share this on your platforms, inshallah ta'ala. And also be sure to make the suggested donation of $10 per person, inshallah, and we'll get that out the way. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to double and multiply your reward and raise your rank and make you from among his noble and honored servants. Amin. And we appreciate you week in and week out, and program in and program out, and whatever we're doing, that you all support us, and we love and appreciate you for all of that, mashallah. And it's a rewarding feeling to be able to engage you all, inshallah. Now, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the opportunity. So I really don't have a lot to offer with respect to the past weekend because I wasn't there, mashallah. Yeah, the way where you make your donation is you can see on the screen, it'll come across, and make sure you put the Black Imams Roundtable. You can use Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, inshallah. So I wasn't there. I missed this immense opportunity. Alhamdulillah, I was at the one in Pittsburgh, and but inshallah, we'll be doing a few more, and then we'll be adding some other texts, as we travel around the country, inshallah ta'ala. And this is something that's very, very important, something that is very, very vital in our community that we need to revive. And so, doing a work like the 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi, rahimahullah, is a start to something big. Many of us are familiar with the 40 Hadith, and I'm sure, I didn't have to be there, but my heart and mind was there. That the learning, the taking notes, the having the connection, the Senate, all the way back to Imam Nawawi, rahimahullah. I know that was a great feeling when you all got that sign, mashallah. And that's the revision that we have to have, that many of us are getting learning according to the Islamic tradition. And, we're excelling in it, inshallah ta'ala. So alhamdulillah. And I saw some of the pictures. I got some reports, and I told Imam Amin, I felt like David Ruffin in The Temptations, man, when he tried to sell those expired tickets. He said, yeah, this show is on Saturday. He said, this show is on Saturday. Yeah, the day Sunday. Oh, man, I missed another show. So, mashallah, but alhamdulillah, we'll catch you on the next one, inshallah. All right, so when we're talking about reviving the Sunni tradition in our community, we first have to understand the level of deprivation that we've had. We have to understand the level of deprivation of the Sunni tradition. And what we've been given in place of the Sunni tradition is Quran and Sunnah. What we've been given in place of the traditional Sunni Islam is Quran and Sunnah, right? And so let me explain that for a moment. So as you all know, that the traditional Sunni way is learning heart to heart, teacher to teacher, face to face. A person hearing something from their teacher, of course, starting with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what they heard, and then they passing it on, and then an unbroken chain from that time up until now. And this is something that was developed with the oral transmissions from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam into the companions, and then it turned into a very intricate and complex science that was preserved. That even people in different structures, they marvel at how the Muslims have maintained their religion by way of Isnad. And we often hear Imam Amin, rahimahullah. Excuse me, wait, not yet. We often hear Imam Amin mention this narration from one of the great hadith scholars, whose name was Abdullah ibn Mubarak, that he said that the Isnad is from the Deen. The Isnad is from the Deen. And if it wasn't for the Isnad, then anybody would say whatever they wanted to say, And so this tradition has been greatly preserved. And even before it was like codified, you find in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after he passed on, the companions, verifying statements from each other, such for instance, a companion would say a statement, and then another one, well, where did you hear this from? Or and then another companion would back it up and verify that they said that statement. And then as the hadith science started to develop, you saw that this verification process was so stringent and so rigid, that it really preserved the deen of Islam, and that tradition has been lost, and in modern times it's been marginalized, and even people have undermined it, with this thing called Quran and Sunnah. And when we say that that Islam, the traditional Sunni Islam, is not what the Quran and Sunnah is doing, what we mean by it is that this whole thing of being able to pick and choose what a person wants from the Quran and from the Hadith, and particularly in the Hadith science, that it has been, it has been compromised in a way that people have been able to go into these books and take what they want and reject what they want according to what's on their own mind, and not according to what has been passed down with an unbroken chain, And so that's very important when you get that. And as you all know, as one sister just said, it was a powerful weekend, and being able to learn these narrations and then get explanations from them, and just having the barakah, being with each other and learning with each other, inshallah. But, going back to this Quran and Sunnah, and we've seen over the years the deprivation of how it's taking place under the guise of, seeking knowledge, or seeking what they call authentic knowledge. You all heard these slogans about the Quran and the authentic Sunnah. And usually what they mean by that, the authentic Sunnah, is what one person has verified according to their own study. One person verifying hadith books according to their own study, and then, a lot of people don't want to come to terms with this, because in the last 30 or 40 years or so, this, and even longer than that, in recent times, people have been put forth and propelled in front of us as people of knowledge. But when we look at what constitutes knowledge in Islam and how it's passed down, then we have to honestly say that they didn't have it, even though they may seem like they have a lot of knowledge or a lot of information or a lot of studying. That doesn't make a person, a scholar because they read a lot of books, that the tradition is well preserved, well intact, passed down, heart-to-heart transmission, inshallah ta'ala. So one of the things that, in going forward as a community, for some of us, we have to realize that we've been deprived. We've been deprived of the Sunni tradition. And just taking directly from the Quran and Sunnah, someone open up the book, open up the Quran, or someone opening up Hadith and saying, if they read Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, and be like, okay, these are the two most authentic Hadith collections. I just read through them and I take what I want and I apply it in whatever manner that I think that fits, without any kind of training, without any kind of instruction. This has been one of the most harmful things that has happened to us in recent times. And even more harmful than that, a person who hasn't been trained and been qualified, we often hear this. A person says, where's your dalil? Where's your evidence? And if you don't give it according to what they've been given as quote unquote authentic, narrations, then, people start all these argumentations, and then people who are in these situations and arguing, they're not equipped to even be arguing because they haven't received proper training. So that's one of the first things to realize, that we've been deprived of the traditional Sunni Islam, and how deep it goes, how deep the deprivation goes. Because sometimes, we see people and they're promoting Islam, and they're promoting what seemingly to be, authentic knowledge. And, they're quoting the Quran, they're quoting Hadith, they're quoting scholars from the Salaf, but the isnad is missing, and we do have to take a hard look at that. And then this is some of the things, how we gauge people, how to give them knowledge. So, okay, where did you learn that from? How far can a person go back with their chain of narration? Because, unfortunately, if a person can only go back to being a graduate of Medina University, then they're missing it. And we've been thinking, I don't know how this occurred, but, and, you know, this might be seem like throwing shade or whatever. You know, people could take it how they want to take it. But, you know, the University of Medina only opened up in 1961. And if you look at the history of how the Saudi state got established, and they went through 3 states, the first 2 states, you know, they weren't really focusing on knowledge. Their knowledge was whoever agreed with Ibn Abdul Wahhab's, you know, his promotion of what this 3 categories of Tawheed and what he took for himself and what he assessed for himself and what he spread. And then, you know, he went to villages and towns, you know, contrary to popular opinion, right? That he went to villages and towns and told people to either follow his doctrine or they would be considered unbelievers, you know. And then after a while, when all of this was fighting against Muslims and, you know, killing Muslims and spilling the blood of Muslims, you know, someone said, okay, we got to get some type of academia going, you know, because right now we just got, you know, people that are an exclusive group teaching this Wahhabi doctrine, you know, and we have already shown in previous works, Imam Amin has shown people that, you know, right from the very beginning, it was identified as the Wahhabi movement. They were identified as Wahhabiyya right from the very beginning, right? And so now at the later stage, as it got developed, you know, that there was a royal decree issued in the 60s that the University of Medina had to be established. And so, you know, not to take too much time about it, but you should go and look how that was established and who established it and what kind of connection did they have with an isnad that goes back to the time of the Salaf. You know, you should look into these things, and then you should ask people who come from them, okay, you learn from this teacher, who did they learn from, and how can they relate their chain? You know, open up some of these books, and you will see that the traditional Sunni Islam scholars, you know, they will put in their books their chain. They will put in their books their chain. And you'll be hard-pressed to find people who have come out of these, you know, so-called prestigious universities to be able to have that connection. And that's some of the things that we have to pay attention to, because with all of the availability of knowledge online and teachers and all types of courses, we have to look behind the scenes, you know. So that's the importance of the program that we had this weekend, knowing what it looks like to be trained in having a sanad, you know, that connects you with knowledge and connects you with the scholars who have preserved the knowledge with an unbroken chain throughout the ages. You know, and then another thing we have to look at. So we talked about, you know, realizing that we've been deprived of the Sunni tradition, and then realize is that the Quran and the Sunnah, or taken directly from Quran and Sunnah, without any kind of curriculum or methodology, you know, that has already been in place, you know, with the 2 schools of thought, you know, the 2 schools of Aqidah, the Ashari and the Maturidis, and, you know, the Fudala min al-Hanabila. And then, you know, the four madhahib, the 4 madhahib, you know, the Hanafis, the Malikis, the Shafi'is, and the Hanbalis, right? And then you talking about the traditional Sunni Islam also involved following the tariqah, you know, following the science of tasawwuf. Not no goofy Sufi stuff. We talk about the science of purifying the heart, right? And so this has been the traditional Sunni Islam that has been preserved intact and passed down throughout the ages, and somewhere down the line that has been lost, you know. And I have recommended you all read this book before. It's called The Broken Chain, Reflections of a Neglected Tradition. This is a very important book to read, and it's the author, his name is Aftab Malik, you know. And he goes to how the tradition was broken, how people have undermined the tradition of the Sanad, you know, how people have started extracting things from the Quran and Sunnah on their own, and, you know, without any backing, without any training, without any instruction, and a lot of times without any authority, you know. And so that's very important to realize. You know, that the deprivation, how deep it goes, and as we go forward, how we have to really, you know, we have to deconstruct a lot of these things, and then we really have to assess people according to what they're teaching and what they're not teaching, what they're depriving us of, you know. And so, and again, I want to congratulate all of you who were there, mashallah, those who completed the session. This is very important. So this is like an indication of how knowledge is sought, that people travel, they take the time, they take notes, they listen, they're able to, run it back, inshallah. And so you're part of a very sacred tradition in learning Islam, alhamdulillah. So I wish I could have been there, mashallah, but I'll be there for the next one, inshallah. All right, but so those are things that we have to realize in going forward. The level of deprivation, and it's enough to really make you angry. It's enough for many of you, probably like me, when you finally realize that that this stuff was an actual movement. This Salafi movement, some levels of it is a cult. Some levels of it, it leads to kufr. Some levels of it, people have left Islam, and all of these things. And the thing that you find missing in the movement is that these people can't really trace their academia back to the way of the Salaf, except by what they selectively choose. Except by what they selectively choose. We're talking about a chain of narration. You teacher to student, teacher to student, teacher to student, all the way back. And so, and if any of you had experiences with those people and, the way they teach and what they promote and what they put in their books, it's all recycled stuff. It's all the same stuff recycled, and they can't really give you an isnad. They can bring you biographies of hadith scholars. They can bring you biographies, but can they bring you a chain of narration that says that this sheikh learned from this sheikh, who learned from this sheikh, who learned from this sheikh, all the way up until the present time that reaches back? And they'll be hard pressed to do it. They'll be hard pressed to do it. And even some of the claims that some of their so-called teachers that they promote, they say, yeah, this he has a chain, he has a sanad. And with science, though, with science, who gave them the permission to do these things, except that they graduated from a school or university. And so graduating from a school or university doesn't necessarily make you trained in that kind of science, And so these are things that I'm sure that many of you are discovering, and that, as we discovered it, it makes us have a great appreciation of learning traditional knowledge, and that we keep up the work, inshallah. And then this kind of work is going to be vital as we go forward. We have to start countering some of the stuff that has happened, previously, and what has been, pushed as an agenda on us, And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq. So I'll stop there until my turn come up next.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So I wanted to now get a little bit more detailed into this reviving the Sunni tradition in our communities. Can I copy it? Maybe. Oh, it does work. Let me see.
Did you learn a new trick, man? What are you doing?
Yeah, boy, I'm working, boy. I got it. Like a little kid in the candy store.
That boy trying to type without looking. Okay.
No, I'm learning how to copy and paste.
Ah.
It's there. Mashallah.
Doing big things.
See, I could have been doing like this. Now I just copy and paste. Boom. Right? I want to share something with you, right, about this. So can we all copy that? Reviving the Sunni tradition in our community. Can we all copy that and put it up, please? Because I want a concept in our mind. So I want you to be active a part of it. So you can do like I did. Copy it and paste. Can we all do that real quick before I continue? I want us to share in something.
Nah, we're going to type you, man. We know how to type, man.
All right, don't screw it up, because sometimes people know how to type and don't know how to spell. Right? I can type, but I can't spell. Right? Now, come on, all y'all, there's a lot of y'all, over 100-something people. Come on, man, fill that thing up. This is important. I need all of us engaged. Hey, Hussein, Spencer, I love you. Can you come on? I want to meet you. I'm just giving you this. If you free, Hussein, I want to send you this link. I just want to see who you are. You always talking. I really want to meet you. Hey, Imam Faheem, can I invite Brother Hussein to just show his face for a minute
Absolutely.
so we can meet him? Because sometimes we be talking and I don't get to see him. Brother Hussein, if you're available and you're in a good spot where you can come up, I just want to meet you.
We got rules though, man. You don't look presentable. Don't get on.
Don't worry, you can look. You see, I'm not looking. Somebody hit me in the face. Somebody I have a style. He really punched me and didn't tell me, right? But so I still came out. So if you look better than me, you good. But okay, you working. All right, Mr. Charlie got you. Don't worry about it. Freedom shall come, my brother. Like you said. All right, now let me go to my point, right? So that we all put that up. So when I say reviving the Sunni tradition, because it's a Sunni tradition is practically dead in our communities. And it's been replaced by an unorthodox methodology. So we want to revive that Sunni tradition, which is in everything we learn, every single science, we should be committed to learning it in the same way we learn those 40 hadith of Imam an-Nawawi. That should be a commitment for us, right? How did we learn the 40 hadith of an-Nawawi this weekend? We learned it from a living teacher with a chain of narration of teachers who the student learned from the student, from the student, from the student directly. We learned a reliable book with that chain connected to that book and a reliable scholar in the person of Imam an-Nawawi, and from Imam an-Nawawi back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that was in the 40 hadith. I want us to have a commitment that everything we learn about in Islam is done that way. From a living teacher with a connection, a narration of chain from teachers that he learned from, right? A reliable text in that field, whatever you're studying. So we were studying hadith. So the reliable text is Al-Arba'un an-Nawawiyya, the 40 hadith of an-Nawawi. From a reliable scholar, Imam an-Nawawi, Al-Hafidh, Imam Muhyiddin, Abu Zakaria, Yahya ibn Sharaf an-Nawawi, rahimahullah. And then from him, back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like that in every science. So that's what we want to try to establish as a living practice in our communities. So wherever we go to learn, we're looking for this. If that's missing, we're going to establish it and revive it. This is an important historical event. I'm telling you, it's very necessary, especially in our communities. So our commitment is what? When we learn, we're going to learn from living teachers who learn from living teachers, right? So all those routes that we mentioned were living people to living people, right? So when we related from the Yemeni route, that's a living sheikh, right? To living sheikhs who, right? When we related from the Egyptian route, living sheikhs, student to teacher. When we related from the Syrian route, living teachers. when related from the African route, living teachers. So that's one aspect of it. Why do I say living teachers? So that there are no claims. There are no false claims, because these are actually living people. And they actually met, or they actually authorize one another. This is very important. It's like, as we say in our new, I'm a little old, but I'm trying to copy off the young people, no cap. For real. We received this from that route. That person actually signed. You notice we signed that, so that no one can say, whoever received that ijazah, I met them, I know of them, they did hear, they heard, they were present. I'm authorizing them from my route, just as my teachers or those above me authorize me, right? To relate that chain. We want to do that in everything we learn, every science. That's why it's important to learn books, because the books have living authors, or authors who lived, who passed it on to their living students, and those living students to living students to living students to living students, till it reached us without a break. That's very important. And I'm going to tell you why it's important. Because at the end of the day, Imam Amin is fallible, like every other human being, except the prophets, alayhimus salatu wassalam. So I can make mistakes. I'm human, right? But if you know our connection, my mistakes can be fixed at those above me or those equal to me. So all those teachers that I related from, I'm not the only one that related from them, right? There are others who could verify these chains because they related too. They didn't, like they just said, Amin Muhammad, you're the only one we're giving this ijazah, and it's only for you. And you're the only one that attended the sessions, and you're the only one relating from our route. That's not how that works. There are others who also relate. So even if I make a mistake, once you know the connection, you can verify if you're in that pursuit, in that study and preservation, right? As you know, so say if we're all in the class, there were roughly altogether throughout the weekend, about 100 different people who came and listened, right? That's 100 people. And all of those people received the ijazah. So if one of them, for instance, wasn't such a good recorder, they wrote some mistakes, there are some people in there who did a good job, and they could be reference checked for the one who was not so good, but they did hear. Maybe they didn't memorize everything. Maybe some points they misunderstood a little bit, but the other one is there to check. Do y'all see how that works? So you remember when I was giving some of the chains of narration, some people had a rough time writing names down. Remember, I said, don't worry, your neighbor got it. And just cross-reference each other. And together, you're going to have an agreement of what was right. And you follow my point? Not everybody's going to make the mistake. And this is a check and balance of knowledge. Do y'all see how that works? And then, if you're really studious, you can go above. Because not only the teachers whom I received from, they also had students when they were students or when they were receiving, right? And they actually were living teachers, and it can be checked when you expand. So I just gave you 4 routes for the 40 hadith. I have many more routes that I didn't give, right? I selected 4 routes and I gave. I have more than that, which is also another thing, that you study books more than once. So I studied that Arba'in Nawawiyah with many of my teachers in different parts of the world, with commentaries, with different commentaries, with more notes. In this way, I'm sure that which I conveyed was conveyed to me through multiple chains of transmission. at that level. Then at the level of the teacher, they know that, right? And then when you get to the level of these big teachers, you start to know who's who. And then you start to see the agreement of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in their explanations, how they understand concepts from generation to generation to generation to generation. And this is how we preserve and revive the Sunni tradition, right? Sometimes, I know we talk, sometimes it seems like we almost arrogant, like so confident, because like my teacher said, we're supported by mountains. When we were talking about that chain of narration, in that are the likes of great giants. Like in that chain, that one of them we mentioned, in the chains we mentioned, was Al-Hafidh Muhammad Murtada al-Zabidi. Subhanallah, that great master of the Arabic language in chains of transit, the Musnid of Egypt in his time. And above him, the great Musnid of Mecca, Al-Hafidh al-Sheikh Abdullah ibn Salam al-Basri al-Makki. Above him, Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari. Right? When we look like back to these great scholars, to Imam al-Nawawi and those in the chain, and we mentioned and we talked about some of them, Sheikh Muhammad Yasin al-Fadani, closer to us, right? All of that gives us like, man, there, my teacher used to say to me, he said, never be afraid, you're supported by the mountains. Put that in the context. Like, we're relating from these people. If I am weak, they're not. And if I'm accurate in conveying, I'm only conveying what was passed down. So it's a traditional route. There's no innovation in this. This is what was conveyed from teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher to teacher, right? And we know how our religion is preserved, instead of just one person who's by himself, isolated, giving legal judgments. He may be right, he may be wrong, but we don't have no balances to check all that. With this tradition, there is checks and balances. And because it's as my teacher used to say, we're only transmitters. We're not making nothing up. We're transmitting the knowledge as it reached us. And that is preservation of the legacy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we have to be committed to this type of learning. Because, for instance, when we look at those who deviate from the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, they will mention chains of narration. So they say, I have a Senate. But when we examine their Senate, what they are conveying, the people in their Senate disagreed with. Very important. So the person says, for instance, I have these ideas. We don't follow madhabs. But then they'll come with a chain and narration of everybody in the chain who follow madhabs. They'll say, oh, we're not Ash'ari. And everyone in the chain are Ash'aris or Maturidis. We're not Sufis, but everyone in the chain were Sufis. You follow my point? That chain is a protection. So you mean to tell me you're relating from people, but you're conveying what they didn't convey? Because it's a vast thing. When you start to know the narrators of these chains of narration, you start to realize that they didn't just narrate in that. They are narrated in other sciences. They wrote other books. And then you start to realize our scholars and every generation, you start to say, wait, slow down. This is preserved. These ideas are strange, and these are normative Islam. But you only know that through these connected chains, through these reliable books that each generation has passed that book down and down and down and down, so that such that it's almost impossible that all of these people who never knew each other, who some of them never physically met in different places, but through these chains of narration, the same knowledge reached. it is almost impossible that they all together can conspire to lie about this deen. Almost impossible, right? And when you spread that out, you're like, mashallah, our religion is beautiful. But in our communities, this is not being done, and we need to revive it. You know, it's a difference when someone can't do it because they don't know it. As it says, فَقِدُ شَيْءٍ لَا يُؤْتِيهِ, the one who doesn't have a thing can't give it. But we have it now. Right? I remember when one of the scholars, I didn't meet him. He heard about what we doing like this. And he said to his son, give Imam Amin all of my chains of narration. Tell him I said relate from my route. And make sure he spreads it. Just being told about the work we're doing, he was like, I want you to relate from my route. Big scholar, huge scholar, right? Because they want this tradition to be revived. He said, we heard what you do. We seen your stuff. Relate from my route. Please relate from my route. Share it with your students. Share it with your people. Right? And they had high chains, strong chains. And then when I got those chains, I compared them to what I learned from my own teachers. And I said, wow, this one in Africa, precisely after 2 or 3 generations, what my teachers directly conveyed to me in Yemen, in Sham, in Egypt, in Morocco, the different places, exactly the same thing, because I studied with my teachers. So I studied these things and I'm like, wow. Right? This is much different from someone talking about, I'm following Quran and Sunnah. From where? How did the Quran reach you? How did the Sunnah reach you? And if you don't have this chain of narration, how do I know your understanding is correct? Because there's an understanding. There's an understanding contained, a living tradition contained in those chains. Without it, then you say whatever you want. There's no checks and balances. And that's why we need to revive this, right? There is no ego in it. It is pure preservation of this noble deen of al-Islam. So in every science, whether it's aqidah, whether it's fiqh, whether it's tasawwuf, whether it's usul al-fiqh, the foundations of fiqh, whether it is usul al-hadith, the foundations of hadith, the sciences of hadith, whether it is in Arabic language, whether it is in seerah, whether it is in history, whether it is in any of the Islamic sciences, tafsir, recitation of the Quran, this is our tradition, and it is the same in everything. Right? Nothing is different. So this is how we're going to preserve. And then the beautiful thing is when we do it well, and then a few generations, our children have their lineage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right? This is important. And listen, once we got that, we're really connected. We don't got to worry about strange groups. We don't got to worry about charlatans and all that stuff, because we know our tradition well. Our tradition is connected, and we can see when this is right, this is mistake. How do we know it? Because of all of this, right? And then we can be balanced in our judgments, right? And it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight because we actually have to study. But even if we're not like scholarly, we still need to know our lineage, right? We still need to know our lineage. We still should know from where we got this great deen from, how it reached us, right? Who are our men and women who conveyed and about them and what they learned in their sciences? And that is also a way of encouraging others in future generations. Listen, this is what your fathers and mothers in the religion were like. You need to be like that too, if not better. We can push you, right? This is very important. And it's not like some one-man effort, you know? No, this is an ummah's effort. The ummah of Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is their collective effort, right? And we should have it. But unfortunately, we didn't do it in the past well, right? Now let's do it well. Our ones before us, they didn't have all the access we have as a collective group. Maybe individual might have got some, but it wasn't preserved. And that's why it's not normal in our communities. Let us be those who preserve it and make it normal in our communities, right? Do you understand my point? Like, let's make it normal. Where we go in our communities, that's how it happens. Let's be in our own way with our own slogan, like Fat Joe say, today's price is not like yesterday's price. Today's knowledge and study and transmission is not like it was yesterday in our community. You can't, you know that old saying they used to have, can you fool a Muslim? And they be like, not nowadays. Let's make that real. Can you fool an African-American Muslim? Not nowadays. We have our connections. We know how our religion is conveyed. You can't play those games with me. That's how we all should feel. Not big I, little you. We should make it that it's in the heart of every one of us, because we're all going to die, and we want our succeeding generations to be well equipped to handle the onslaught of misguidance and kufr that's going to come to them, because we did our job. That's something we should think about, right? It should be a life mission for us to preserve the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ by the methodology of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And don't let nobody strip us from that. Don't let nobody take that away from us. What Allah has given us, let no man or woman strip us from. And Allah gave us a connection to the Prophet ﷺ. But we have to learn it. We have to honor it. We have to cherish it. We have to spread it. And we have to protect it. It's extremely important. So when I look at this session, like for me, I'm like, and I told Sheikh Ibrahim, I'm like, listen, I'm glad you came out the shadows. I'm glad you came. I know, you be wanting to hide, but what we trying to do, you can't hide. What I mean, just, to protect yourself. We love you. We're going to protect you. Come on. And we're going to preserve that which you had in the 70s that was missed to us, and we're 2024. But alhamdulillah, better late than never. And we're going to preserve that tradition so that that connection is maintained through us for generations. And then when you think if the world lasts for another 100 years or 1,000 years, and Allah knows best when the day of judgment is coming, so we got to prepare for it like we don't know when it's coming. Imagine 100 years from now that our children are saying, I heard from my father who related from his father, or I heard from my mother who related from her mother, who related from her father, so forth and so on. And then that chain, as it's now, we're like 20-something people, 23, 24 people away from those great scholars like Al-Bukhari and Muslim. When it's 30 or 40 people, but those 40 people from there to us are all us. Man, we relating from ourselves like everyone else does. And then we have a pure chain up to our time of African Americans relating from African Americans. That's deep. That's never happened. We can do it. You got to have high himmah. You got to have high aspirations, and you got to have vision. And don't let nobody strip you. And I'm going to come back when I come back so I don't be too long-winded. But it means that much to me. Like, to me, this is my life mission. Like, if I die and I completed this, man, I would rest at ease, inshallah ta'ala. If I actually was a part of preserving this tradition among our people in its proper way, and I was just a seed in that, and it blossomed, mashallah, I want my hand in that. And that's not literalism. That means I want to be a part of it. MashaAllah. So I'm going to come back, and I want to do some more inspiring, because I don't want this weekend to go wasted, nor do I want it to be abused, right? So I'm going to put context behind everything we did, so you know what to do with it. Barakallahu bikum.
Alhamdulillah. Yeah, getting back to this tradition, the traditional Sunni learning is very important, because once you start tracing this stuff back and see how it was lost, and how the Western influence or the European influence upon the Muslims, where they started adopting this ideology of Islam has to be reformed and it has to be modernized, and then it has to be, we have to do away with, following madhahib, following the traditional curriculum in Islam of this transmission, heart to heart, person to person. And then as you see, as the Europeans were working, putting the Arabs against each other, and eventually causing the dismantlement of the Khilafah, that was happening. And then as that happened, then they had to scramble in Saudi Arabia, the last Saudi state that was established. Then they had to kind of scramble to put together some kind of some type of curriculum as far as Islamic knowledge, because their first two states I was mentioning earlier, it wasn't about knowledge. It was mostly violence. It was first clearing, the area of Muslims that they called polytheists or mushriks, then having internal fighting, then almost losing it, and then we mentioned these names before, that Jamaluddin Afghani, Muhammad Abdullah, if you read in this book, The Broken Chain, I was just reviewing some of it, is that there was a European leader there from Britain. His name was Lord Cromer. And he is the one who appointed Muhammad Abdullah as the Mufti of Egypt, right? And I think he held the office for a little time, but he didn't have any traditional background training, and then some people say that they were, part of the Masonic order, and Allah knows best, I don't know. But these people didn't have the Islamic training. And then even some of the criticisms of them saying, how did these people get in office? So basically, they removed anybody who could be a threat to them, and then put these people in office to promote this agenda of reform. And so if you make the connection during I think it was the second Saudi state, when they almost got wiped out, and then some of the sons and grandsons of Ibn Saud and Ibn Abdul Wahhab, they were in exile in Egypt. And they ran into Jamaluddin Afghani and Muhammad Abdullah. And so they started getting some of these reformist ideologies, that they took back with them, And then I think Muhammad Abdullah was the first one to declare openly, to abandon following the madhabs, that they were no longer needed. And you find many statements from these reformers. And then as you see, Al-Albani was his influence was Muhammad Rashid Rida, who also was a student of Muhammad Abdul, with this reformist movement, doing away with everything, just taking what is so-called authentic, selecting what they want from the narrations without anything to back it up, And so and then that part of that reformist tradition continued, and so this whole Sunni tradition has been lost. It's almost non-existent, especially in our communities. So what we're doing here, is really countering all of that stuff that's been happening, since the advent of this movement, this reformist movement, coupled with the Wahhabi doctrine, has unleashed, some academic terror on a community, on the Islamic community. And we're fixing all of that. So this is just little parts that we're playing. As Imam Amin was saying, just imagine us, learning these 40 hadith, and we getting the chain of narration with it, isnad, and then eventually we memorize it. And then eventually we're able to explain, we're able to look at some of the sharh of the 40 hadith, then we're able to teach them because we have confidence that we're backed up by mountains, and then that's how it's preserved. And wallahi, learning this tradition like this and going through this, you're accomplishing more than a person who so-called graduated from a university and has a degree and all of this kind of stuff, that they don't have this kind of training. They don't have this kind of training. And so you should be very honored and be confident, and then be excited about it, Be excited about what we're doing here, and keep continuing to make that it prompts you to really keep going and keep going and keep going, and because this when you really start studying this stuff, it's enough to really make you angry, like the song you say makes me want to holler, when you really go back and see how this tradition has been dismantled and undermined even nowadays, you can easily find some of these people saying that the traditional Sunni way of learning Islam is like blind following, and taking the scholars as like the Jews did their rabbis and the Christians did the monks. That's the same way we do our scholars and stuff, and all this nonsense that you hear, and the whole time, I just mentioned when we says there's a question. So when we revive the Sunni teachings, traditions, are we learning to just be learning to use in our communities, and how do we use the traditional learning way? It's today's social structure. What's the plan? Yeah.
I want to jump in when you finish. Go ahead. I want to answer that question.
Okay, now you got that one. I'm finished. Finished.
What link are you talking about? Money link? Okay, put money link right now, joke. I don't know what link you're talking about, but tell me what link in case I'm missing it, but I'll put it up. I don't know what link you're talking about, but I think you're talking about this link. And if you're not talking about that link, talk about that link, and then we talk about another link afterwards. So that's the money link. You're doing your thing. I'm proud of you. Keep up the work. Subhanallah. So this was a question I had to talk with today with our beloved Imam Muawiyah. Make dua for our brother Muawiyah, who's leaving back to Egypt with his family to continue his studies. Let us recite Al-Fatiha for success for him. Al-Fatiha. I said to him, listen, man, 10 years minimum. I said, 10 years minimum. And I said, you're going to need 10 years minimum because you're going to need 5 years of no playing just in Arabic. He was like, man, I'll get Arabic in 2 years because he already know Arabic. I'm like, no. No, I don't need you to be able to speak Arabic. I don't need you to be able to read Arabic. We have to know Arabic. There's a difference. Let's put that up just so we can keep it in our mind. We don't just need to speak and read. We need to actually know. Can we put that up? We don't just need to speak and read. We need to actually know. There's a big difference between the two. It's very important. To master something is different from being able to repeat it. We need masters to answer this question. So it's a context why I said that. We don't just need to speak and read Arabic. We need to know Arabic. There's a difference. Because some of us are still living in the early 90s and 2000s. Think I'm going to go overseas, I'm going to learn some Arabic, and I'm going to come back and be the man. No, you're not. That's not going to happen. We need to go to another. We did that already. It doesn't work. You know how many people went overseas for 5 years, 6 years? They know Arabic. They come back and dumb as a pile of bricks, to be literal, right? They study 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They know some Arabic, and they dumb as a pile of bricks because they don't know. There's a difference. They speak Arabic, yes. They can read and write in Arabic, yes, but they don't know the Arabic language. They have no proficiency. Let me give you an example. All of us know how to speak and read English, but most of us could not tell you the difference between a noun, verb, predicate, adverb. We can't even know the difference. We don't know English. We know how to speak. We know how to read. We know how to write, but we don't know English. Would y'all agree with that? Most of us don't know English. I go to the university and they studying and they don't know English. Right? That's English. But we read, speak, we function. But we're not really knowledgeable of the English language. We don't know English. We don't know more than the literal meaning of some words. We can't go into no real detail of the English language. We can't be in Arabic with a 4th grade education or a 5th grade education trying to study our tradition. So the students have to go to another level. Let me tell you why. A lot of people who graduated from these universities, they can read and speak. They can write, but they know nothing about our tradition at all. Zero. You mean you did 4 years, 6 years, and you still got blasphemous beliefs, innovative ideas? You don't even know the books of our tradition. You don't even know the scholarship because you don't really know the Arabic language and what it contains and the amount of information. You have no idea. So after all your studies, you still need to be taught. We can't keep being like that. That works for us. The next generation has to go to another level. They can't be like us. So I was telling them, I said, you can't come back microwaved up. Nah, you got to be slow cooked, bro. And that's going to take time. So when we revive the Sunni teaching traditions, first of all, that is not going to happen in our lifetime. It's going to be started in our lifetime. Understand that. Let's get to the first part of the question. So when we revive the Sunni teaching traditions, stop right there. That's not going to occur in our lifetime. It's going to be started in our lifetime because the Sunni teachings, that tradition is vast. We're not talking about one aspect. We're talking about al-ulum al-islamiyya kulluha. All of the Islamic sciences. We ain't doing that. We still have to learn some of the Islamic sciences within the Sunni tradition at the foundational level. So we're still trying to get it. We're nowhere near it. So don't think this is some simple thing. Nah, this for us, with diligent, hard work, is a 50-year, at minimum, beginning. You heard what I said? With diligent, daily work, every day, hard work, it's a 50-year beginning. So stop thinking about ourselves. We're not it. Do y'all got me? It's not something that's going to happen overnight. I keep telling you, let me put this up. I'm slow typer. There is no such thing as Microwave Islam. It don't work. It don't work. Can everyone copy that, please? And put it back. Let's get that in our mind. That there is no such thing as microwave Islam. Can we copy that and put it back? I think we don't get this. I think we looking to press 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, done. It ain't happening. Seriously, it ain't. It ain't happening. And if we keep thinking that, we're deluding ourselves. We're never going to get there if we keep doing that. There is no microwave Islam. It's not going to happen. We have to put in some serious work. And most of us are too old. We're not too old to plant the seed. We're too old to till the soil and produce the crop. We're just laying the seeds. We got to train the next generation to work on the fields, to turn over the soil and to water the seeds, and then the next generation to let it grow and take care of the weeds. And man, this is work. This ain't no overnight job. Seriously, we need to understand that, because we're looking for this quick, quiet, and sooner fix. That's Fantasy Island. It doesn't work. It will never work. It has never worked in the history of Islam that some people going to say, guess what? We're just going to study Quran and Sunnah and we ready. Man, that's foolishness. We lost 50 years doing that. That mentality, we lost 50 years. I can count them. I can count them. We lost 50 years doing that. That's not real, right? So that's very important. No microwave Islam. So the first thing, when we ain't it. We're just beginning the process, and we got to be committed to that. You got to think long term, at least a 50-year diligent, non-stop, hard work beginning to do this work. Now, once we got that in mind, so we move ourselves except as laying the foundation and laying out the map. We have to do that. We have to lay out the map. What this look like? Here's what it looks like. I'm showing you the road. I'm showing you what you need to do. This is the blueprint. You actually have to do it. And that's going to take time. So when I was telling him, 10 years minimum for your level, your children going to be a little bit more. But for your level, a minimum of 10 years. And if you play around for 1 month, you destroyed that. A minimum of 10 years. And if you play around for 1 month, you destroy that. Every month you play around is a year that you push your portion back. Every month you play around, you push your portion a year back. So if you play around for a month, added 11 years. That's how serious the work is. It's not for playing around. When you come back, people like us should be able to sit down, because we shouldn't even be needed when you finish. Let's finish that first point. When like Muawiyah comes back, we shouldn't be needed anymore. We should just be mentors on the life side of it. The knowledge, we should be referring to him for everything. He's our sheikh. We don't have to ask nobody. Right here, we got him right here. Whatever we need to know is in his capacity. That's how knowledgeable he must be. We shouldn't ask nobody else. What is the question? Ask our sheikh right there. Boop, he got it. And whoever's at his level of studying, it should be some of them. So we're talking about one. His wife should be like that. He should be like that. Then everyone that's in that moment of studying, we as a community should make sure that they're doing it. They should be examined by us. Okay, you studying what you did, right? What are you studying in fiqh? What are you studying in Aqidah? What are you studying in Tasawwuf? What are you studying in Arabic? What are you studying in Usul al-Fiqh? What are you studying in Usul? We're not playing games. What have you memorized? Let's test you. That's where we have to be. It has to be serious business. We can't be playing around. We're talking about our future. So that's the first step. Are we learning to just be learning to use it in our communities? And how do we use the traditional learning in today's social structure? What's the plan? The plan is that you have real scholars among us who understand our time, understand our context, and how to apply the principles of the Sharia in our time, in our context, towards us as a collective people. That's why you need a real scholar, not some parrot who doesn't understand. That's work. That's not easy, because life has a lot of things. Life has a lot of rules, dealings and transactions and everything, modern cases. He's going to need not just the books of fiqh, not just the books of Aqidah. He's going to need books of fatwa. He's going to need to know books of principles. He's going to know the objectives of the Sharia. He's going to have to know all that to apply it within this context that we live. This is work. This is not a game. And for us who've been playing games for so long, we got to know when we should step out the way. Right? That's been a problem. We have in our communities people who don't know, this is above my pay grade. I need to pass the baton. I need to defer on this one. It's very important. So yes, because other than that, we're going to have unlearned people trying to do this work, and it's going to be a disaster like it has been for so far. We're going to have unlearned people trying to do work that requires a specialist. It's like me coming in your house doing your electric. You're going to be in trouble. No matter how great I think I am, I'm not an electrician. I don't know what I'm doing. Even if I know how to put wires together. If you let me come play in your house, I might cause somebody to die. I'm not an electrician. And likewise, we're not Islamic scholars. We don't know our tradition that well to apply it in the context of all the stuff we got going on. We need learned people who understand us. That's why we need our people to do it. So I hope y'all understand what I'm saying. This ain't a game. This ain't something that's going to be easy. It's going to require a lot of us. And Allah knows best. Great, Imam, I got to charge my fingers, dying. I hope I answered that question fully, because without it, we can't do nothing else. We're just going to be doing stuff, and we're going to be all over the place, making up rules, making up opinions, making exceptions where exceptions don't exist, making strictness where strictness shouldn't be applied. We're going to be a mess. All of it because we're ignorant of our tradition. We're ignorant of the rules and how they apply, and when there's exceptions, and when there's necessities, and what is the objective of the sacred law in relation. All that stuff is important. And it is a whole rich Sunni tradition that addresses all of that. But we have to be engrossed in that tradition. It's very important. And we got to get away from the microwave Islam approach. A guy who hasn't read a book talking. You haven't read one book. You haven't studied. And when I say read, I mean you studied with a teacher, one book in the different sciences, just one, and you can't get away with one. You haven't studied one. How are you so authoritative? You don't know. I don't mean you don't got a good intention, but you don't know. You can have all the good intentions in the world, but you don't know. You can't do it. I might want to fix your electric. I don't know how. I can't. But if I go in and say, I got good intention, let me fix your house, you're going to say, no, you don't know what you're doing. Likewise, we got to say to ourselves, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me go get some professionals. And we need professionals who understand us. If y'all got my point. And if you don't, I'm going to say the hard saying. If we don't do it, we're going to be slaves forever for the rest of our existence. If we don't do it, we as a people will be slaves of others forever. We have to change. We got to drop our egos and say, listen, I know I ain't qualified and I need to get qualified. And sometimes we got to admit, I'm not the one. I'm telling you, I'm not the one to do that job. I can point you in a direction. I can make sure you do it. But me, myself, I can't. I'm not capable of doing it at my life, my age, my circumstance, my life structure. I can't do it. But I can help you do it. I can show you what to do. I can point you in a direction. I can check you. I can aid you. I can support you. And I can lay the ground for when you do it. I can do that part, but I can't do the actual job. I can do my part. You have to do your part. And we got to realize the difference, because some of us be trying to do stuff we can't do. And we're making a mistake doing that. We're causing a disaster. That's reviving the Sunni tradition. And it is a work that is shared. Not one individual going to be able to do all that. That's a part. You're going to do a part. You're going to do a part. You're going to do a part. And together, we're going to bring all that together, and we're going to build our communities and build our society and then build the world collectively, not by ourselves. I hope that answered the question in some way. And if we need more, I'm open for it, because it's a discussion.
Yeah, I think in addition to that question, just to answer it or address it a little bit, one of the things that we can do in the meantime is really, teach our children manners, getting our children prepared to be ready to learn. And so then once we prepare them the proper way with manners and instructions and tarbiyah, then the sacrifice that we need to make for some of them to be devoted to learning, being devoted to traditional learning, it becomes easier. There's a statement by Abdullah ibn Mubarak, rahimahullah, that he said that we learned manners for 30 years and then we learned knowledge for 20 years, and so that's something very important. In the meantime, getting our youth ready, training them and getting them ready for, stuff that they need to know. So when they're ready to go to the next level, they're not struggling with comprehension. They're not struggling with attention spans. They're not struggling with, being belligerent or anything like that. And some of the things that maybe not Muslim kids, because, they're going to be different, but, as our people in general, this is one of the things that's hindering our children from really learning, because they have some of these, restrictions basically, in learning and behavior. And then, as we teaching our children, also put them in service. This is one thing that's going to be important, that our children know how to be in service of people, so when they getting around, ulama, and they're learning, they know how to just really take it all in stride, so they don't become frustrated, they don't become disheartened or, discouraged, and they continue this, because alhamdulillah, we have our Imam Muawiyah, may Allah preserve him and honor him, he's like he's a real Jew, but we need 10 more Jews like that. We need 10 more Jews like him, And last week we mentioned how his family, may Allah preserve them, did a remarkable job in raising him, And I was able to meet his father. His father's a very, nice brother, very upright brother, man, and raised a jewel, And so that's what we need to do as fathers, raising our sons and, committing them to knowledge and putting them around people of knowledge and starting them young, and helping them to really be able to get ready to receive this knowledge. And one of the things I found that many times, we as a people, we don't want to make that sacrifice, that real sacrifice of giving our children up, making sure, that they're ready to sacrifice, because sometimes we don't see the long range, the long-term effects of it. We want them to, finish school, and we want them to be successful as far as the dunya, and all of us, we'll make all the sacrifice so our children have everything that we have. Well, we didn't have, but it was because we didn't have is what made us earn what we tried to get, uh, and so in the meantime, we really what we can do, there's a lot of resources that we have that we can start teaching our kids, children Quran. I know many schools. There's one in our area. It's an accredited school now, but it started off as a weekend school. And the director of the school doesn't even have a background in education. Doesn't even have a background in education. Subhanallah. And so, may Allah reward them. But that's something that we need to do. Really pull our resources together. Put our children in schools where we're teaching them Islam, we're teaching them manners, we're teaching them community involvement, we're teaching them service, we're teaching them financial literacy, we're teaching them how to, take care of elders, we're teaching them how to be respectful for neighbors, respectful to neighbors, and all of those things. So then when it's time for the bright and the best of them, to go get the traditional knowledge, even though part of it they're getting it right here, then when they go and excel, then they come back and then we have them ready, and as Imam Amin said, we have to be ready to come to terms that we ain't going to see it in our lifetime, but we can start planning, because, all of us, we want to leave behind children that are going to, continue a legacy, and that it doesn't end with us. Our communities are not supposed to end with us. All of the efforts that we've been putting forth is not supposed to end with us, and we really have to start putting these seeds down hard, because, I tell you one thing, I don't want to be doing this in another 20 years, probably not in another 10 years, but I got to keep it going until, we really get something in place so that young people can go ahead, because I'm not really, I'm not averse to really just stepping back and letting young people, even when they're making mistakes and things that with my experience, I wouldn't do it that way, but I'm willing to let them go, but we got to get somebody who's going to, you see them, bright and they're able to do it. Don't send them off to just go to school and learn how to get a job, get somebody ready to take the helm. And then they have a whole supportive community, and because one of the things that many people, and we've seen this before, that people go over and they get traditional knowledge, and then they have to come back and they have to get a job. They have to try to work because they went and did all that, and then that stuff don't pay the bills. And if you're in America, this is America, Jack. You got bills to pay, and so we hope that we can really start now, and giving us all glimpses of that we can do it. We really can do it. If you were at that that seminar over the weekend, the conference, and you learned and you see how it went, then you can do it. If you took a whole weekend, just imagine someone who's freed up and not really bogged down by responsibilities of life, and we got them learning and teaching, and they got support. They don't have to worry about their bills getting paid. Just imagine the kind of progress that we can make, because we got to, we at a stage now, we do have to turn it around. We have to give something an alternative to what's been given to us that wasn't traditional Islam. And as Imam Amin said, it's going to take some time. It's going to take some effort. It's going to take some sacrifice. It's going to take some blood, sweat, and tears. It's going to take a whole bunch of bread, more than what we be requesting. It's going to take a whole bunch of bread, and so, inshallah, we ask Allah who subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq, because, at times, like the session that we had over the weekend is like, it's a glimmer of hope. And then sometimes it's like, man, where are we going, and, but we got to keep pushing, inshallah ta'ala.
Hey, we're getting close to the end, so let's try to knock out these questions that they have real quick, inshallah. Okay. The first one was, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I want to know if the book Imam Amin had a few weeks ago about the Salafi scholars intentionally misinterpreting the books of the Sunni in English. No, that book is not available in English, unfortunately. It is only in Arabic, unfortunately. But there are other books similar. I don't know them, but I know some books were written in English that cover the subject similarly. But I know they are. I just don't know what the specific books. But I'm quite sure those books exist. Where's Imam Ibrahim? He's from northern central New Jersey. That's where he's at now. Northern central New Jersey. Allahu Akbar. I don't like people using this example. Electrician said, religion is different because it's spiritual. It's hard for me to trust anyone nowadays, even scholars, in time of corruption and propaganda. I mean, that's fine. Examples is to give you an idea of something you may not identify with by something you identify with, right? So even if you don't like the examples, if I gave you religious examples, it's not all spiritual. Some of it is physical too. Some of it is mental. Some of it is academic. Some of it is spiritual. And spiritual is an underlining thing. But maybe if I talk to you about Islamic sciences, I don't know you specifically. Maybe you don't know anything about Islamic sciences, so you won't get the point. But you do have a house, and you do know you're not going to let no unskilled person come in and do something that requires skill in your house. So that's the example. It's not to compare it with religion. If you know for sure you're not going to let an untrained person come play with the wiring in your house, right? You're not going to do that. I would hope you're not going to do that, right? So it's only by way of an example. Likewise, with your spiritual and religious matters, you should try to ensure that the ones doing the teaching and understanding have some kind of skill in what they're doing. There's going to be levels of skill, but we're talking about generational stuff. At our level, we already realize we're trying to set in our communities in motion, right? So we're just laying the foundation. We're not the people. We understand that. But we're at a stage where we're learning what the people should be like and what it should look like on the ground. That doesn't mean we don't have a part. We have a part. But it's the part of laying out the foundation, right? And inshallah, like we said, it'll come. We just got to do our part. And Allah knows best. I guess when you want to jump in, Imam. Most of these were related to what I said.
Okay, no, I didn't have anything.
Are there any specific topics within Islam that is contested by different groups which we should know about, and at least the true Sunni position on it? I think we talk about that all the time. Really, in our time, the biggest concern we have is Aqidah, because that's a popular misconceptions in our communities, at least in our communities. Then also spirituality, the science of tasawwuf, Sufism, learning it's correct, and then how to properly acquire knowledge. I think from my side, those three things would be the most important topics in Islam that we need to master. And Imam Faheem, if you have something else, you can.
No, yeah, that's just about the same thing. Really learning what the tradition is in Islam, how it was preserved, and then you see where people who are professing to be promoting this tradition, how they differ from it. So you got to go back and look at some of these, so-called scholars, and really how did they learn and who did they learn from, what institutions they went to, those kind of things. Did they really meet the requirements that puts them at the level where people have placed them on? Like, did they memorize the Quran? Do they know all of the rulings of the Quran and the rulings of Hadith and the rulings of fiqh and all of those kind of things to make the kind of judgments where people say that they are the faqih of this era or the muhaddith of this era or the most knowledgeable person or alama and all of these titles that they give them, when in reality, all they did was graduate from a university for the most part. They graduated from a university that is a contemporary university with no isnad, and then you go back and look at some of those things, and you determine who is really doing it, what I mean? But it's just as Imam Amin said, really in the issue of Aqidah, as far as the issue of fiqh, do they follow a madhab? And then the issue of tasawwuf, do they have a relationship with the tariqah? Or if they're studying tasawwuf and promoting tasawwuf, what is it, goofy stuff? Or are they saying that it has, as some of them considered prominent by people are saying that, Sufism has no basis in Islam. They said it has no asl in Islam. You got to look for things like that. And these were coming from people who are, supposed to be like learned people and like the kibar. They call them the kibar or ulama. And it's very, very important to pay attention to that kind of stuff,
The other question, back to Furqan. Furqan's very concerned about these things, and I agree with him. Okay, it's going to take time for the learning part. We got that. In the meantime, what do we do for social structure of our Islamic communities? Because we still have to establish Islam within our communities. So first of all, what we need to do, I'm telling you, to me, what our most important thing is, we need leadership and followership. We need leadership that knows at least Fard Ain, the personal obligatory knowledge of the religion. We need our leadership to be at that level. That's not a scholar. They just know the basic rules. They read a book of Islamic law with a teacher. They studied. They know what Islamic sciences are in an introductory manner. That's just to keep us straight, right? They know what our Sunni tradition is. Even if they don't know the details, they have a structure they understand well. They're not all over the place. The leader himself. Then we need followers who are committed. I think that's one of our biggest problems. We don't have strong followership collectively. I'm not talking about every individual community. Some communities are better than others. But collectively, we don't have strong, committed followership. And maybe that is because our leadership needs working on. So we need to work on that. Once we get leadership and followership, then we need families. We need families. This is just my thoughts. We need families, strong families that are committed to our collective struggle, not just their individual struggle as a family. That family is committed to our collective struggle and our structures, social structure, building our community. And then we need financial commitment because we're going nowhere without no money. That's real. And the idea that, mashallah, no, we have to financially support all what we're talking about. And that needs to be a collective effort. And the other thing, we need people who are engaged in the society we live in a permissible way and bring the resources from the society to build our communities. So everybody can't be Sheikh al-Islam. Some people have to be doctors, some have to be engineers, some have to be electricians, plumbers, financial people, builders. We need all that. Everything that takes to keep a society going, we need it. So some people got to dedicate them lives to worldly skills and professions. Now everybody gonna be the sheikh, and we got to accept that. I still have a role. I'm the businessman. I'm gonna be the one to help fund all this stuff, so the sheikh can be a sheikh. So when he comes back, he's not like Imam Faheem. He did all that study. Imam Faheem said he did all that study. Now he got to go work for Mr. Charlie because we didn't do our part. So we still have a part, right? But we just got to know our role. And we can't try to do something we can't do. Do what you can do. If this is your skill set, use it for the collective growth of our community. But I think the biggest two things that we need to do right now, leadership, followership, worldly education, and people that are specified to do that, and financial literacy in our communities and how to use it to grow our communities. For me, I think these are essential matters. The Islamic matters, that's going to be someone we dedicate for that. Find the brightest among us to study and learn locally, domestically, and then internationally if necessary. But we still got a lot of domestic stuff that they can learn with the stuff we already did. I think when we put all that together, that's That's what we could do right now. And that's work. That's a lifetime work too, because we don't trust each other. That's why we don't follow. So we got to build trust just to have leadership and followership. We got to learn to trust one another, learn to love one another. All these things that we've been missing collectively, that's stuff we need, right? We need that. You need to find someone you're going to listen to. I need to find someone that I'm going to listen to. That's my leader. He said, do that, I'm doing it. Long as it ain't haram, even if it's against my nafs, I'm going to do it. Most of us are not like that. No one can tell us what to do. Too many of us are like that. Nobody tells me what to do. No one am I following except my desires. That's not a good look for our communities. Too many people like that. Right? We got to fix that. There got to be somebody we listen to, somebody we willing to follow, someone we trust. And we got to work that out. I don't know who that somebody is, but please find somebody. And I gave you the grounds by which that person should be trusted. They are an outward, upright person. They learn their basic obligations, and they have a vision that for our community as well. When all those things are together, that person, he's not perfect, right? They're going to have mistakes. They're human beings. But we got to find somebody we trust. And then we got to bring all of those somebodies together to make a whole. Right? That's what I see. And until we get that, it's going to be a struggle. The last question. What you think, Imam Faheem, or you?
Yeah, I know the trust, we got to build trustship, if that's a word. If it's not a word, it just became one. Trustship, in the position that we are in, and people see us as, trustworthy, and, we try to do our best. But, we were people who listened to people. We were people that came on to people, that we were like, we weren't looking to come in and try to, change. What do you need me to do? That's how I was raised, Give me the order, give me my command, give me my instructions, give me my marching orders, and let me go do it. And let me prove to you that I'm worthy of someone that you can trust without any strings attached. And I'll tell you, that's how I became Imam, because people, they knew that they could count on me, and so that's very important, and now, and alhamdulillah, I got some people I can count on, but it need to be more of us like that. When you come to the masjid, not looking at what's wrong or why this ain't working or why this ain't in place or what's the goal and this kind of stuff. What can you offer when you come in? And I forget this narration. It was one of the scholars that said about, when they were looking at all of the places, all of the maqams that, they can get into to try to get to Jannah, all of them were being filled. But the easiest one was servitude, coming in the masjid and seeing what's wrong, as coming in and picking up the vacuum cleaner. You know what I'm saying? And just running across the rug. Somebody come in, what you doing? Nobody's going to come and ask you what you're doing. They're going to be like, mashallah. Somebody saw some dirt on the floor and they didn't just walk over it. Someone saw a paper towel roll in the bathroom that's empty and you got the supplies right there and people just walking past it. The one who comes in and replace it because they know what needs to be done, that's the kind of people that we need more of, and to give support all the time and build trust, and then raising our children to be a part of it, like in the old days. No, you're coming to the masjid, you got something to do, you got to be in service. Yeah, of course they don't like it. Of course they may balk about it. Of course it might interrupt their playtime, but getting our children, especially our boys, ready, and we'll start to see it turn over. We'll see a little glimpse of it, inshallah, as we go along, but doing more of those things, I don't know who this question was he referring to. Shouldn't both of us drop our egos? Am I allowed to ask a scholar where he studied, who are his teachers before he starts teaching? Yeah, I mean, not to prevent you from it, but you know, if you're asking a scholar, that means yours and you're missing something. You know, you're missing something. You know, uh, you want to answer that one, Imam? I mean, you're on mute.
Any person who studied whatever they studied, they will tell you. So I don't think a question of where you study and who are your teachers, if you before you go learn with a person, you should have some idea of why you're going to learn from them. And usually it's because they studied something and they know something, right? Or you see something in that. So out of manners, you're not going to go to someone like who you studied and like testing them. But if you're learning, it's obvious, right? That stuff's obvious because you're going to sit down and learn and you're going to know who they teachers were. You're going to have to ask. So if I go to a teacher, I'm going to a teacher because I see something in them already that indicates they have some proficiency in what they're doing, right? So when I'm sitting with them, I'm going to actually learn all of that, and I don't even have to ask because a real teacher is going to want you to know that, right? So somebody come to me, where you studied that? And my first question is, where you learned that? Since you worry about where I studied, where did you learn to question where I studied? Where did you learn? To even determine if where I studied is significant anyway. So the question I think is misplaced. Why don't you sit down and learn? And then as you learn, all that will be known to you. If I'm a real teacher, you're going to learn that, right? So I think, yeah, both of us need to drop our egos, the teacher and the student. And part of the student not having an ego is sit down and learn, because obviously you come into that teacher not coming to you. You're coming to that teacher because obviously you recognize they have something you don't have. So have manners when you come, right? I never went to one of my teachers and said to them, and I have a lot of teachers, I never went to them and said, where you learned, who you took from, but I sat with them and I learned all of that. I never went to one of my teachers and said, show me your chains of narration. I sat with them and I learned, and they gave me their chains of narration. Do you understand my point? I don't recall ever in my life going to a teacher saying, from whom did you learn? Even after I learned, when I actually know. Because I just sat. I wouldn't have went to you if I didn't think you didn't know anything. I wouldn't sit with somebody I obviously don't know. I wouldn't sit with them. I wouldn't even waste my time. Because you don't know. And the one who don't know can't teach. So I'm not going to sit with somebody who doesn't know, which means I have to know something to recognize that person doesn't know. Right? I have to have a level. So I don't think I know that's definitely not the behavior of a student. To go to a scholar, how do you know if they're a scholar anyway? To ask them where you studied and who are your teachers. How would you know? Even if they told you my teacher is Sheikh Ali Baba of the, how would you know? You don't know teachers. You don't know scholars. That's an assumption of knowledge. Who you studied with and who are your teachers. That's an assumption that you know. So if you don't know the person, how do you know their teachers? There's a level of arrogance there if you think about it. Because even if they told you, you don't know the teachers. So there should be a period of learning. And then as you learn, you will discover things. You will learn that who's the teachers, what books. If you learn it in the traditional Sunni way, I would never need to ask nobody who's your sheikhs. I'll sit with you and listen to your classes and see your teacher, and I'll discover all that myself. Because I did have a basis of learning. I know some basic stuff. You follow my point? Like I have a certain foundation. So someone can't just tell me anything. I know what the Sunni curriculum looks like. So if you're teaching outside that curriculum, I recognize this is a self-made teacher. This is not how Sunnis learn. Why? Because I have experience. And you don't have to be the most knowledgeable person in the world to teach me something. You don't have to be a scholar. Did you learn properly? Okay, good. Even if it's one subject, that's fine. I'm going to learn that subject from you, and then I'm going to go to someone else to learn the rest. You don't have to be a scholar to teach. And in closing with this point, someone asked me this. Well, what do we do with the ijazah that we received over the weekend? The ijazah is a connection for you to know the route the knowledge was transmitted. Your job is to study your notes well. What you learned well and you're sure about, you should convey it to those who you can reach. What you're unsure about, you should say, I don't know. I need to go review, or I need to ask my teacher because I didn't get all this fully. And you should know the difference. Right? Is it saying you a sheikh? No. It's connecting you, showing you how knowledge is transmitted, and then inshallah, you make effort and you become a part of that. That's what you do with it, right? And you do that whether you have an ijazah or not. I remember Sheikh Samir said to me one day, he was talking about ijazah. Because at one time, that's all I was thinking about. Ijazah, ijazah, ijazah. That was my thing. That's why I had so many. That's all I was thinking about. Ijazah, ijazah. Every time we finish a book, ijazah. And one day he got like fed up me with that stuff. He was like, man, you have all my ijazahs. What more you want? I was like, no, I didn't get an ijazah in this, right? He said, stop. Let me explain to you. He said, did you study this with me? I said, yes. He said, did you understand it? I said, yes. He said, that's your ijazah. I said, deep. That's what he said to me. Did you study this with me? Did you understand what I conveyed? I said, yes. He said, that's your ijazah. Now go teach. Go do what you do. And I stopped asking for ijazah. I don't think I've asked for ijazah since he said that to me. And I remember he called me because I wasn't around when he was giving out ijazah. I stopped even hanging out for that. He called me. He said, go tell Amin to come get an ijazah. And I didn't come. He met up with me and he said, get your book. And he wrote ijazah. I wasn't interested after that. I got the point. It wasn't for clout. Did I understand? Yes. Did I learn? Did I hear? Did I take? Yes. Balighu anni walau ayah. Convey for me even if it's one thing. That's sufficient. Now, if you didn't understand and you know you messed it up, don't convey that. Say, I heard, I was present, but I didn't get it all. That's it. Some things I misunderstood. Some things I didn't understand well, and they need to be checked. They need to be reviewed. But these things I understood well. Here's my notes. I did it well. I got it. That's it. And then spread what you know. What you don't know goes, well, so-and-so was in the session. They might have understood it better than me. Here, I'm going to refer you to that person for that issue. That's it. And in this way, we keep the knowledge going. Everybody got what to do with the ijazah? Don't walk around talking about you Sheikh al-Islam. The ijazah don't say you Sheikh al-Islam. The ijazah say you were present, you heard, and we testify that you were there. And we want you to be connected. That's the ijazah. That's it. So don't go around, I got ijazah and now I'm the sheikh. No, you're not. You may be the fake, right? Convey what you learned properly and what you understood. And that's the intent. But you are connected. You did hear. You did sat. You were there. I saw you. You saw me. I watched you. Sometimes you question. I saw when you were sleeping. No, I'm joking. Right? We were there. That's a continuous thing. That's it. So is that part about those who keep asking me about what do I do with the ijazah? You preserve it. And you study and you review. And then you take the book again and take the book again till you become proficient in it. and then you convey. That's it. The same thing we did. Nothing different. We're not making no claims. We sat, we heard, we learned, we memorized, we sat again, we heard, we learned, we memorized some more, we sat again, we heard, we learned, we memorized again, we sat again, we on and on and on and on and on to the day of, no, wait a minute, bars. On and on and on and on to the break of dawn.
And you don't stop.
Am I clear? Everyone's clear with that? Don't make no claims. This is not about our egos. This is about really preservation. And our teacher said, whoever instead of a book 3 times has never studied the book. Whoever didn't take the book 3 times has never taken the book at all. So that means you got to keep going. Fil i'ada ifada. You keep repeating, there's a benefit. Every time you're going to learn something different. If those who were in when we taught in Pittsburgh, you saw that we did much different things, added things, explanations, clarified in Atlantic City, what we didn't do in Pittsburgh. When we go somewhere else, we do it again. There's going to be more details. You never stop learning until you reach the grave. Never get tired of even going over this. I took that already. Yeah, how much did you understand? I don't know. Let me tell you a story one of my teachers said. He was teaching a lesson. And someone said to him, "Oh man, we heard that. You keep saying the same thing. We heard that before." He said, "Okay." He waited a time. Then he said to that same person, like months later, he said to that same person, "Where is so-and-so?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Repeat that lesson I told you, the one you said you heard it all over again." That person looked and started smiling, said, "I forgot." He said, "That's why I keep repeating." He waited. He was trying to make an example. He said, "Where is the person who said I say this all the time?" Point him. He said, "Repeat what I said in that lesson." "I forgot." He said, "That's why I keep repeating." We're human beings. So in repeating, there's a benefit. So taking the book again and again, I know some of these books I took like 30, 40 times. Sometimes with the same teacher, 10 times. With other teachers, some of the books. Literally over and over and over and over and over again. Some of the books I memorized and then I forgot. Then I took it over, memorized again, and forgot. That's why you got to keep it going over and over and over and over and over again. And never do, every time we go over a book, I learn something new. Every time. There's never been a time that I covered a book, no matter how many times I covered it, that I learned something new. I thought about it different. Because when I'm learning, sometimes I'm not concentrating on everything. I'm concentrating on this. The next time I'll concentrate on that. And it's adding and adding and adding. Sometimes I didn't see the depth of that. I see the depth of that. I'll tell you one story. One book we were learning, and we were reading the book, and there was a line in there. And when I remember it particularly because when the line was mentioned, I was like, well, what the heck this is? What's the significance of this? And I passed. 10 years later, that case came up, and I remembered that line in that book. 10 years later. I had never, for 10 years, that issue never came up. When I heard it 10 years later, that issue came back to my mind. 10 years later. This is the way of knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. So there is a benefit. Don't ever say I learned that. No, you didn't. You learned a part of it. And when you learn it again, you're going to learn another part. And when you learn it again, you're going to learn another part. And you're never going to complete it until you die. And that's in everything you learn. Right? That's why Imam Nawawi, he used to take 12 subjects a day. And he would be seen walking down the street repeating his lessons. 12 subjects in different sciences a day, in different books. and he would be walking down the street repeating his lessons. That's Imam an-Nawawi. And none of us are like Imam an-Nawawi. So what do we need to be doing? All right, there's one more question. I hope that answers that. Oh man, I missed the last question. Hold up, let me find that last question. Dad. It was one last question.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Let me see if I can grab it real quick. Oh, here you go. How does the leader community hold the leaders in the community accountable? Go ahead, Imam Faheem. How do we hold you accountable, Sheikh?
Talk to me, communicate. Something that you don't think that makes sense or you don't understand it, communicate. Don't accept stuff that's that's obviously not right. As far as behavior and those kind of things, but communicate with the leader. A lot of times us as leaders and imams, it's very hard to come across people who have the heart to tell us things. Be that person. Be in private. Let me have a word with you. You know what I mean? And for us particularly, we don't really have that issue of people correcting us or holding us accountable. But if you see something that you think that needs accountability, the approach is very important too. Come in private. Text, say you want to you want to meet up. We can discuss it over lunch. And also be ready to have some, make sure that it's like legit. Like legit, not just stuff that you disagree with, because there's always going to be things that we do as leaders that somebody's going to have a problem with. Somebody's going to make an accusation. Somebody's going to say, we didn't have their best interest in heart, that we failed them, and that's going to happen a lot. But accountability means that the leader is really in place and he's kind of equipped to move the community forward. And so when you see those things, just make sure you communicate to the leader, and not behind his back, because a lot of times there's growing tensions in communities with people who won't say anything to the leader, but then they'll drop seeds of dissent to other people and all that kind of things, and then they end up going off and doing their own thing. Just be careful of that, But the community, someone who is going to who has a connection with the community, then they bring it to the leader and try to bridge those gaps together, and Allah knows best.
For me, this is the way I applied it when I wasn't a leader, and this is the way I would hope that people would apply it to me now that I am a leader. When I wasn't a leader, I was just among the followers in the community. I was accountable myself just as much as I wanted the imam to be accountable. I was accountable to the point that I held myself to the same standard I held the imam. That's how I was. Whatever I expected the imam to do, within my capacity, I was willing to do myself. So he was no more accountable than me. He was accountable within his sphere, and I was accountable in my sphere. So if I was to correct the imam, he never would take that offensive, because he know I work just as hard as him. I'm committed just like he's committed. I sacrifice just like he sacrificed. And we both sacrifice so much, it's hard to tell who's sacrificing the most. He's taking from his family, I'm taking from my family. He's taking from his time, I'm taking from my time. He takes from his job, I take from my job. He takes from his sleep, I take from my sleep. Literally, to the point I became like his twin, right? To the point whatever the people expected of him, they expected of me too. Right? And that's how I was available to be the Imam, because I was doing the work. I was literally doing the work. To the extent that the Imam, rahimahullah, can we have Fatiha for our Imam, Imam Khairu Shakur, rahimahullah ta'ala, al-Fatiha. The Imam used to do something. He would hit me with the Jumu'ah khutbah without telling me 10 minutes before the time of Jumu'ah. I ain't making it. I need you to go film. Often he would do that. I never complained. Sometimes I would be at work and he would call me and say, I need you to get to the Masjid. Because of the job I was in at that time, sometimes I would come to Juma late, like, because to get my break time and shoot out and go back. He would call me, I need you to do the Jumu'ah. And I would have minutes to leave my job, get my clothes, get ready to go on the minbar and give the khutbah and get back to Mr. Charlie. I never once complained. I never once said, man, you need to do your job. Never once. And those who from my community, they know this is true. Many times that would happen to me. But I'm accountable, just like him. I didn't look at it, that's just your job. It is your job, but it's my job to help you when you can't do your job. It's my job to be prepared to help you when you can't do the job, because it is our job. It is our community. So whatever it is, it's my job to fill in too. You follow my point? So that's the best way you hold the leader accountable. Hold yourself accountable. It's easy to say the leader ain't doing something. Okay, what you doing? Maybe he got a reason why he can't do it. What you doing? Man, that's his job. No. It's our job. He's the one in charge. And sometimes he need to allocate when he can't do everything. And you need to be available to be allocated to. So hold yourself accountable. I know how many times you heard somebody say to you, I ain't the Imam.
Plenty of times.
Meaning they don't got to do the sacrifice.
Yeah.
I ain't the Imam. That's your job. You took that on yourself. Aren't you a part of this community? Ain't this part of your responsibility too? Right? And I measure it by the statement of Sayyidina Ali. Please take this for my closing statements to this question. During the time of Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu ta'ala, people came to him. They said, you're the leader and we got all these problems. But in the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhum, we ain't have all these problems. Now you the leader, we got all these problems. Imam Ali said something beautiful to them. He said, Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Uthman had men like me, and I got men like you. Mic drop. Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhum had men like me, and I got men like you. Boom, mic drop. You want to hold somebody accountable? Hold yourself accountable. As imams, we pride ourselves on giving all we got. We don't make no excuses. Now, the one who want to hold us accountable, why don't you be like that? Don't make no excuse. Don't make no excuse. We can't say I quit. We can't say I'm tired. We can't say I got something else to do. Well, why don't you be the same way? Why don't you be the same way? Don't tell me you're tired. You get up at night. Don't, as I told the people, like right now, no shot at nobody. I still got work to do from the summit. I mean, from the weekend. I still got to go do physical work in the masjid. I got to physically go do work, clean up, do stuff, put stuff back the way it's supposed to be. I got to physically do, even though others, they're going to help, inshallah ta'ala. But no matter what, I have to do that. I don't have an excuse. I can't say somebody else going to do it. They may not. And if they do, they may not do it to the standard we need it done. So I have to go do it myself too. So I can't just give a lecture and teach. I have to go work too. And anyone who comes to Masjid Muhammad, they'll tell you, I ain't walking around like I'm just some sheikh kissing my hand. I work like everybody else. Ask anyone who comes, do I look like I'm just some sheikh floating around the building? Some imam who, no, ask anyone, I'm involved like everyone else. So therefore, if all of us did that, all of us, we're all accountable. No one's free of accountability. Not just the leader, the followers too. Everybody's accountable. At the same level, we just got different jobs. Imagine when we all feel that way, what our communities looks like. It works when we all feel that way. But if it's just the responsibility of the imam or just the responsibility of a few brothers or sisters in the community and everything's on their back and the rest are just complaining or laying back, it's not fair. All of us got to work. And each of us should feel like it is my individual responsibility to move this thing forward. All of us got to be like that. If we're like that, then I dignify myself by the fact that I work just as hard as everybody else. To me, that's important. I'm never going to ask somebody to do something I don't do. And I'm not willing to do. I would not dare ask anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. I wouldn't do it. And each and every one of us, that's how we hold each other accountable. So when I say something, whoever I'm talking about know he's going to do it himself. When I ask someone to do something, they know if you don't do it, he's going to go do it. There's a lot of stuff I would like to just be home sleeping. I'd be tired. But I got to do the work. I got to go do my part. I would love to just go home and chill, play with my babies. Can't do that. I got work to do. I got to do my part. And sometimes I can't just do my part. I got to do other people's part who dropped the ball. And I can't make an excuse. Well, they dropped the ball and just don't get done. No, they dropped the ball and you got to go do it. That's how we all should be. If the imam dropped the ball, you go do it. And then tell him, stop dropping the ball, imam. All right, I'm done. But if we all do that, so don't drop the ball. We made the 500. Since you asked the question, let's hold you accountable. Double the price. Since you worried about being accountable, I need you to double that number. We reached the 500, you make it 1,000. Do your part. Right? Be accountable.
Absolutely.
All right, Imam Faheem, I'm done. You want to close us out?
Yeah, I'm done. Alhamdulillah wa shukrullah. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us another opportunity to engage you all and to have this discussion. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept it from us and the reward according to his measure. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase you all in every good works and to bless you all, those who have earned your ijazahs. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you the foresight and ability to put them to work. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise up the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our prophet and messenger, and our master Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success in our endeavors. Amin. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Al-Fatiha. Amin. Alhamdulillah. Thank you all for your participation tonight. And may Allah give you all a great reward. I mean, we love and appreciate you. I mean.